Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. We begin this afternoon with news that a firefighter became the first road fatality for 2020 following a four-vehicle collision on the Old Harbour Main Road in St. Catherine Wednesday night. He's been identified as Sheldon Henry, who was assigned to the Old Harbour Fire Station. 5 people, including another firefighter and a policeman, were also injured. Reports are that Mr. Henry left work and was heading towards Spanish Town. About 11:30, it's alleged that he overtook a line of traffic and crashed head-on into a truck close to McCook's Pen. Mr. Henry was the sole occupant in his Mitsubishi Lancer. The driver of the truck lost control of the vehicle and crashed into 2 motor cars. We understand that at least 2 other persons were also injured. We'll have more on this developing story in primetime news at 7. The supermarket supervisor accused of fatally shooting his co-worker at their workplace in Mandeville, Manchester on New Year's Eve is said to be cooperating with investigators. The suspect, who is a licensed firearm holder, surrendered to the Manchester police about 4 o'clock Wednesday morning. He's implicated in the murder of 24-year-old inventor clerk Chantel White. In an update to our news center last night, head of the Manchester Police, Superintendent Gary Francis, said investigators are close to charging the suspect.
Well, we'll continue our investigation and we expect to lay charges against him before the end of this week. The investigation is progressing well so far. He is somewhat cooperating with the investigation.
About 6 o'clock Tuesday evening, Ms. White and her supervisor, who were involved in a relationship, were in the lunchroom when an argument developed between them. He allegedly shot her several times. Stop doing gun salutes. That appeal from the father of the 15-year-old girl who was shot on the church compound of Emmanuel Chapel in St. James following New Year's Eve service Wednesday morning. The teen was reportedly in the churchyard watching fireworks from the nearby Montego Bay-based Pier 1 with friends. Her father, Pastor Mark Mullings, explained that it could have been prevented.
The licensing authority has in recent weeks and days had been issuing out those pleas for persons, whether you're a licensed firearm holder or whatever it is, to not do these kinds of things, because we must be cognizant of the fact that what goes up must come down, and it could have been totally different today.
His daughter remains in the intensive care unit at the Falmouth Hospital in neighboring Trelawney. Meanwhile, the St. James Custis Bishop Conrad Pitkin, who also chairs the Jamaica Umbrella of Churches, the Jamaica Umbrella Group of Churches, says the authorities need to revisit the operations of the states of emergency.
In their evaluation, they need to tighten. I know that there's a call about taking away people's right, but we must be willing to give up some of our rights if we want freedom.
In the meantime, with over 1,300 murders committed in Jamaica in 2019, Bishop Pitkin is urging the police to work more closely with citizens to tackle crime. Speaking at the JCF's annual general devotion at the Police Commissioner's office this morning, he said the police should plan more community meetings and fora to educate people about the role they can play in solving problems in their communities.
You know, many of the murders could be prevented because they're not crime. There's a domestic challenge and conflicts that we have. And you know the statistics more than I do. Let us join in educating others, whether it be government agencies, NGOs, civil society, about the role of problem solving and the establishment of formal structure for smooth cooperation.
In the meantime, JCF chaplain Pastor Dr. Gary Badu Fletcher says the force lost 14 men to suicides within the last decade. He notes that 2019 ended without a single suicide.
We praise and thank God for this. But this did not come about by coincidence. As every call for help coming from our members was treated with the greatest level of priority, whether by our police peer counselors, our assistant chaplains and my office, and in collaboration with our psychiatrists, and I say Dr. George Leverage here, counseling and clinical psychologists, and social workers from the medical services branch. And we continue that work with even greater intensity and effectiveness in 2020.
And it's now time for a break, but stay with us. More stories right after these messages. Thank you so much for staying with us. Continuing the news now. The Police Federation will today contact its medical services branch to conduct tests following reports that 3 officers contracted tuberculosis while on duty. It's suspected that they were infected while tending to a prisoner at the Supreme Court holding area. Chairman of the Police Federation, Sergeant Petrero, told our news center that one of the policemen has been hospitalized.
The Police Federation was contacted and told that some of our members attached to a particular location in Kingston have been diagnosed with tuberculosis. One has been hospitalized. We have sought to visit that member that was hospitalized and seek to assess the source of the disease and to see if we can get interventions internally to treat the matter. The matter is still very new to us. The information was yesterday. And so there is much work to be done in identifying what the issues are. It's something that is concerning to us.
Sergeant Rowe said the other policemen are receiving medical treatment.
I am told that other persons went to their private medical practitioners and was diagnosed with tuberculosis, like illnesses, and are on medication for it.
Tuberculosis, or TB, is a disease caused by bacteria which usually attacks the lungs but can also cause damage to other parts of the body. Now, it's spread through the air when a person with the disease coughs, sneezes, or talks. With over 100 workers losing jobs at Wysinco due to the ban on styrofoam, one trade unionist wants the company to implement a skills bank where persons can be placed in future jobs. Chairman of the Wysinco Group, William Mafood, says his company will no longer produce food containers amid the ban. The government ban on the local manufacture, distribution and use of expanded polystyrene foam products used in the food and beverage industry took effect on New Year's Day. The skilled and low-skilled workers are represented by the National Workers Union, NWU. NWU General Secretary Granville Valentine says the workers should be given first preference whenever future jobs are created. He also wants the government to urgently revisit aspects of the ban, noting its implementation could have been delayed.
But over another 6 months, so to speak, 3 to 6 months, we should phase in some of these things. Preparing the persons mentally also to deal with a crisis situation such as this, as losing their jobs.
The government says it will use moral suasion to get compliance with the ban on styrofoam food containers, which, as I said earlier on, took effect yesterday. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Daryl Vaz, says there will be public education and sensitization on the ban. He's hoping there will be a high level of compliance. Reactions this afternoon to the opposition's demand that the minimum wage be increased to $12,500. Opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips proposed the increase in his New Year's Day message. But as we hear in this report from TVJ's Prince Moore, at least one trade unionist says the call is unrealistic and should not be supported.
In his New Year's message, opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips said the current figure of $7,000 for a 40-hour work week is inadequate and a major contributor to the 30% growth in urban poverty.
With the significant fall in the value of the Jamaican dollar and the rise in the price of basic items, the low wages keep many workers poor, as does the increasingly widespread practice of treating many full-time workers as contract workers and thus deny them the fair wages and benefits to which they would otherwise be entitled. Today, I'm giving notice that the opposition will be demanding and fighting for the minimum wage to be increased to $12,500.
But for President General of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union and Government Senator Cavan Gale, the proposed figure would result in job losses and would also put employers of minimum wage earners in a precarious position.
Where because they depend on the services of minimum wage earners in order to carry out their functions because they are employed, would also put pressure on themselves. Whilst I agree that annually there needs to be a review of the minimum wage to the extent where there are increases, doubling the minimum wage is unrealistic and a call that should not be supported.
In the meantime, a member of the National Minimum Wage Commission says the body has not completed its deliberations on the minimum wage. The Commission completed a series of public consultations in November and said it would focus on preparing its recommendations for presentation this month. Head of the Jamaica Employers Federation, David Wan, who sits on the Commission, says the information gathered during the consultations is now being compiled.
What we're doing now is putting everything together, as well as the inflation rate. We're going to depend a lot on that too, from stacking, to put it all together to come with a recommendation to go to the Minister of Labour, which she will ultimately take it to the Cabinet also. But we have not finished deliberating yet. We still have not met as a group after the consultation. But I can tell you we've heard a lot of input from a diverse set of people.
The national minimum wage was increased in August last year when it moved from $6,200 per week to $7,000. Prince Moore, TVJ News.
Sports now. Jamaican superstar Usain Bolt has been named the Male of the Decade for Athletics by the Daily Telegraph newspaper in the United Kingdom. The 33-year-old, who retired in 2017, won an incredible 3 gold medals in the 100, 200 and 4x100 relays at the 2012 Olympics in London, then repeated the feat at the Rio Games in 2016. Bolt also won a combined 8 gold medals at the World Athletics Championships in 2011, 2013 and 2015. The Telegraph credited Bolt for his outstanding achievements on the track, but also his presence off it, calling him the man who grew bigger than the sport. The triple world record holder, however, was beaten by basketball star LeBron James to the Associated Press Male Athlete of the Decade. The votes, which were done by AP sports editors and writers, placed Bolt third behind James and the multiple-time NFL champion Tom Brady. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Don't forget to join us at 7 for a Primetime News package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.